In the early hours of December 3, 1984, the residents of Bhopal, India, woke up suffocating. A dense, low-hanging vapor was rapidly flooding the city's streets and filling homes while people slept. By dawn, thousands were dead. Hundreds of thousands more were blinded, coughing, and desperately seeking relief behind makeshift masks. It remains the deadliest industrial disaster in human history. The toxic cloud traced back to the edge of the city, erupting from a pesticide plant owned by Union Carbide. On paper, this was a modern chemical facility, built with multiple, overlapping layers of redundant safety systems. A facility engineered from the ground up to contain toxic materials should never have allowed a single drop of gas to escape. To understand how it failed so completely, we have to look inside the tanks. The plant manufactured its pesticides using a chemical intermediate called methyl isocyanate, or MIC. It is incredibly effective for pest control, but it is notoriously volatile. This diagram illustrates the core danger of MIC. If the chemical comes into contact with simple water, it triggers a runaway exothermic reaction. It boils, expands, and turns into a highly lethal gas. To prevent this, the plant stored liquid MIC in 3 massive underground tanks. They were sealed tightly against outside moisture and pressurized with inert nitrogen gas to keep the liquid stable. The entire architecture of this factory operated on a single imperative: keep the MIC cool, keep it pressurized, and keep it completely dry. By late 1984, the Bhopal plant was running at a steep financial loss. In response, management enacted $1.25 million in budget cuts. They halved the supervisory staff, reduced training requirements, and began indefinitely deferring maintenance on the equipment. On the night of December 2, workers were performing a routine water washing operation to clear out a clogged pipe. Because the plant's valves were poorly maintained and highly corroded, the water bypassed the seals. It flowed directly into tank E610, which was currently holding 42 tons of liquid MIC. The reaction was immediate. Temperature inside tank E610 pushed past measuring limits. Internal pressure spiked uncontrollably, violently stressing the steel container. The first line of defense was a heavy-duty refrigeration system attached to the tank, designed to keep the MIC cool and slow accidental reactions. But it had been shut down months earlier to save electricity, and entirely drained of its Freon coolant. As gas escaped the tank, it rushed towards the second defense, the vent gas scrubber. This tower neutralized toxic gas with caustic soda. But it had been placed on standby, lacking the power and chemical reserves to stop a leak of this volume. Surviving gas pushed toward the third defense, the flare tower, which was supposed to ignite and burn off remaining toxins. But the tower was completely out of order. A critical connecting pipe had been removed for maintenance and never replaced. The final desperate measure relied on external deluge guns. These water cannons sprayed high-pressure jets to knock down the escaping cloud. But the water pressure was too weak. The spray fell drastically short, completely missing the toxic cloud billowing overhead. 30 tons of methyl isocyanate vented into the atmosphere. Because the gas is approximately twice as dense as air, it didn't dissipate into the sky. It fell to the ground, hugged the terrain, and rolled over the factory walls into the surrounding neighborhoods. These administrative budget cuts systematically disabled every single mechanical failsafe engineered to stop the leak. The local medical infrastructure collapsed almost immediately. Hospitals were overwhelmed with thousands of casualties, and doctors were completely unaware of what they were dealing with. They had no idea the gas was MIC, and they had no established antidotes. Thousands died in the first few days, primarily from choking and severe pulmonary edema, as their lungs filled with fluid. Union Carbide's immediate corporate response was deflection. To distance themselves from the broken scrubber, the empty refrigeration unit, and the missing pipes, the company blamed a hypothetical rogue employee, claiming the water was introduced through deliberate sabotage. Union Carbide CEO Warren Anderson traveled to India shortly after the disaster. He was placed under house arrest, but the government urged him to leave within 24 hours. He fled the country and never faced trial in an Indian court. The Indian government initially claimed $3.3 billion in damages. Ultimately, Union Carbide settled out of court for $470 million. By the time that money reached the families of the dead, the average payout was roughly $2,200. The corporation successfully minimized its legal and financial exposure, while the people of Bhopal were left to carry the permanent cost of the exposure. Today, the Union Carbide plant sits abandoned and heavily rusted. When the facility closed, tons of hazardous waste were simply left behind, leaching toxic chemicals into the local soil and groundwater. The human toll continues to compound. Decades after the leak, the local population surrounding the site still records devastating rates of birth defects, childhood growth problems, cancer, and respiratory disease. The Bhopal disaster demonstrates that robust engineering and redundant safety systems are entirely meaningless if administrative cost-cutting is permitted to dismantle them. It stands as a permanent, tragic warning. The moment a corporation prioritizes its balance sheet over the strict realities of chemical engineering, the next disaster is already guaranteed.